This is the Fuel Sports Network.
Behold the King of Kings.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
I'm dropping the hammer.
No, you're not.
And that's the bottom line.
Here, have a quarter, make a phone call.
I have wrestled with an alligator.
What?
I done tussled with a whale.
What?
I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail.
Funky butt loving.
Did he say funky butt loving?
There's no crying. There's no crying in baseball.
Let the big dog eat.
Woo! Whoa! Woo! Whoa! It's time!
Hello, one. Hello, all. I'm back. Took a couple weeks off there because making some changes to the studio, to the setup. Lots of things going on, lots of moving parts, lots of moving components. Welcome back. It's prime time. I never really thought that I would end up coming back prime time. I've been a midweek guy for so long doing the morning shows and had a lot of fun doing it. And I enjoyed always doing it that time frame. But, obviously life changes, things change. And yet how many things change, yet so many things stay the same. Thank you to all those that have returned and have come back to the Derek King Show. Here we are on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And we're going to talk Cardinals baseball. Pretty much a majority of the show. We're going to talk about decisions made. We're going to talk about these last few years with the organization. We're going to talk about front office ineptness. We're going to talk about ownership and their inability to be able to make tough decisions when those decisions need to get made. I was watching a little snippet from the local St. Louis ESPN station 101 ESPN Hubbard Sports Radio. And on the morning show, the hosts, and whom I know all of them, great people, was discussing that particular subject matter, was discussing the Cardinals organization and what the Cardinals have not done and continue to do, even though it is flying in the face directly of you fans that are out there watching the product, that are going to the product, that have bought season tickets, that continue to support said product. And this is by all means not a team bashing thing. What this is this is an accountability session. That's what this is. This is all about accountability and holding the organization, the ownership, administration, all of them to a standard, to an account. We just saw here the other day, a little bit of snippet of NFL news, that the Jets have relieved their head coach, Robert Saleh. Gone. Bye. Aaron Rodgers has been known to be a coach killer. Just look at his past history. The truth is that the Cardinals organization needs fundamental change. They need fundamental change from the top to the bottom. They are one of the most understaffed minor league system in the entire league out of all of them. There was just here a few years ago when the Cardinals organization, throughout the Springfield Cardinals organization, which is a wonderful organization, by the way, know everybody within that organization, know how hard they work, how much they bust their hump to bring a great product in what they do, and obviously work within the parameters of what they can work with. Obviously out of Memphis, they are grossly understaffed. And they have guys that are, where's their catchers coach? Where is the guy developing the catchers? Where's the guy that's developing that first base skill? Where's the guy that's developing that true outfield skill? Where are they? Because they don't exist within this organization today as you see it. The problem, again, is from the top, and it always trickles down to the bottom. And we're going to address that. We will address that. We'll address many other things. But some of the things that I want to stress right down here, make sure, you're doing it all. Like, share, subscribe, get it out there. If I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without your guys' help. At the end of the day, I wouldn't be where I'm at without every one of you. You guys help, always have. I appreciate you. Love you guys very much. And we've done this for how many years? Long time. If I've not been with one entity, I've been with another entity. I've moved from one to another, and I've always talked sports in some capacity or something sports related in some capacity. And I appreciate every single one of you. So again, please like, share, subscribe. And I appreciate all the help that you can give me out there. Share it to all your fan groups out there, man. There's how many Cardinal fan groups are out on Facebook right now? 500,000. I can't even keep track of them all. I really can't. The press conferences state they're going to do what they've been doing, and without admitting what they weren't doing, what they should have been doing. So insightful. I love Ron's tongue in cheek. I've always enjoyed this because it tickles me. It really does, genuinely. It tickles me to death. When I see Ron pop in there and he will say things like this because he just hits it, boop, right on the nose. Boop, there it is. The queen herself. Ron hit it again on the nose. He hit it right on the head by stating that the organization said nothing, did nothing, and have no plans of how really to fix it. Outside of we're going to spend less money. So if you have a problem within an organization, if this is a real serious issue that you have, then why is it that you're just going to go, yeah, we're going to go back to the drawing board and we're going to focus more on player development and we're not going to spend nearly as much money? That just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I don't really get the point. Why is that? It doesn't make much sense to me. And, it's funny, talking about things that don't make much sense. There has been a lot of changes within the Fuel Sports Network. There have been a lot of things that have pivoted, adjusted, because they just have to. It's a natural part of the way we do things. And so, might I introduce to you, without further ado, the Spurge, and he's probably on the verge because that's just the way he rolls. It's the Spurge himself. Everyone, big round of applause for the Spurge.
I was sitting at the Chinese buffet stuffing my face, and I get a text message saying that the Derek King show is going to be in prime time, and I'm like, well, I'm eating. So let me see what happens. I come home. I'm sore after a long day at work. I take a nice warm bath. And then I pop on, and there you are. So I'm like, well, let me go down and welcome Derek King to prime time. You look good.
Well, I feel good.
Do you feel good?
I look good. I feel good. I
I
smell
can't
good.
say I look good. Look at all that white.
Well, that's all the stress.
You think so?
Yeah, it's the stress of of running an organization. You know, it gets to you after a while. It eats at you. Oh gosh, here we go. The queen herself has chimed in. No
She's
one wants
always
to see
chiming
that
in. Do we even
dude.
listen? Do we even listen to
Oh,
her
man.
anymore?
And the A Train himself in prime time. Yes, that's right. Oh yeah, dig it. We're in prime time, brother. And
You know,
again, you know that's it. This was a long time coming.
it
Frankly,
was.
because you know I was on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for such a long time that
Yes.
we all felt like, hey, listen, you're gonna have to like shake it up a little bit, change. I can't tell you how many people had come to me.
I like this. Did you see this? Move over
no,
Larry
here
King.
we go.
I think it would be kind of easy for you to move Larry King over, considering Larry King is 6 feet deep.
Yeah, that wouldn't be that hard. I don't think that would be
Right.
that difficult to be able to do.
It would
Now,
not.
the thing is that you put me in the same range as Johnny Carson. Now we got a conversation going because that man will live forever. It doesn't matter if he's gone.
I had to step away to yell at my kid for watching strike 3.
Oh no,
Yeah, that's the worst thing ever in baseball. Never watch a third strike.
no,
Karate chop to the throat
you
for that.
never watch Third Strike.
Never.
No, it's
But
just
you're talking baseball, and
Yeah.
it brings to me the greatest Cardinal announcer of all time.
Mhm.
Comes to my head.
Jack
you
Buck.
know? No, hey, Mr.
Oh,
King.
here we go.
It's Harry Carey. I'm the
Everybody, here he is. Everybody, here he is. You need to know that this
I
is
am-
how this goes.
I am
It's Dirty Carey.
the greatest Cardinal announcer ever. Ever. Me and Jack Buck, we used to smash Budweisers in the press box when we were calling games. And then I got in trouble for doing some things I shouldn't have done and had to go to the Cubs. You know? No, you talk about the Cardinals, and we see it finally. Bill DeWitt does something intelligent and makes John Mozeliak step aside. The man who is single-handedly, if you're a Cardinal fan or not, we are used to the Cardinals winning. Single-handedly destroyed this organization. Single-handedly
Well,
destroyed
it's funny.
this organization.
And I would happen to agree to more than you possibly know. And again, to those out there in TV land where you're watching us on Amazon Fire, you're watching us on Roku, you're watching us on fuelsportsnetwork.com, you're watching us on the Facebook, on the X, on everything that there is to watch.
Baby.
We're there. But we had not had this conversation. This is completely brand new, fresh. We've never really talked about this. There's a lot of things we talk about. This just doesn't happen to actually be one of them. But
No, usually we're talking about what we're going to do for the
usually how we're trying to plan the week out or how we're going to schedule everything and what we're going to do. But the whole funny part about it is that you're more right than you know, because John Mozeliak took over the reins, fell backwards into a position with the organization during the exodus of Walt Jocketty. At this current point in time, as you are watching this particular show on October the 8th at 7:15 p.m., I'm writing an article specifically dedicated to this particular story, but I will go into a little bit of that and tell you a little bit of that
don't ruin
history.
the story.
I don't want to ruin the story, but I will tell you a little bit of that history. John Mozeliak has been riding Walt Jocketty and Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan fumes for a decade plus. And actually, really, just only a decade, because frankly, after the Tony La Russa years and the Walt Jocketty years, which ended in, what was it, 07, I believe, when Walt Jocketty had left and then went to the Cincinnati Reds to be their GM. At that point in time, Walt, you got to remember, that was kind of almost a package deal because they all came over from the Athletics back in the 80s. You know,
Correct.
they all came up with one another through that entire time frame, through that entire period of Oakland athletics, you know, hierarchy of baseball, and all the success they had, multiple playoff bursts, 2 World Series, won one of them, you know, all these things that they did. And then they all came over to St. Louis. And so everybody talks about George Kissel, which rightfully so. George Kissel is the father of the developmental system, you know, of how, you know, some people will talk Branch Rickey and a lot of different things, but George Kissel was really the one who built the framework around it.
You're really starting to give away your story, your article that you're going to be able to
to
find
an extent, but there's going to be a lot more in that. There's going to be a lot more detail. I'm just giving you the broad brush.
Right. A-Train asked me, he goes, what am I looking at, Spurge? I found an interesting article today from the business Journal, and the Cardinals are looking at how they can revamp the Cardinal experience.
Right.
So you can go on the Business Journal and you can, you know, pay the $4.99 to get it, but it gives you a minute preview of the article. But they're wanting to sink money into renovations of Busch Stadium. I don't think they need to do that because Busch Stadium is still fine. If you ask me, I was just there for a game, got some, you know, decent tickets. But what they really need to do is, you know, then as I scroll down, there's another article on Mike Schmidt, the former Cardinal manager that they said wasn't going to do anything. Let him go, and then look what he has done in San Diego. Now, is it morals problem why the Cardinals are the way they are? Or is it your GM, John Mozeliak? Because when is the last time we've got a big blockbuster trade?
That's a really good point, because I could sit there and think back. It was Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. Those were the last 2 real big blockbuster trades. And again, in the death throes of the Mozeliak regime, mind you.
Now,
So that's there. But if you go back and you think back, there's only been a couple of players here and there that have fit that mold.
One in particular, he wore number 25.
Right.
Set a home run record.
Right. Another one wore number 15.
Another one wore number 15. Now you're talking about trading Wilson Cortez, the catcher who cannot call a game to save his life.
But
it was proven.
Whose fault is that?
Well, I mean, that's his because he never learned. Look, if anybody knows me, I've never been a Yadier Molina fan. Never have.
Fair enough.
But what I will say about Yadier Molina is Yadier Molina was the heart and soul of that Cardinal team.
Right. I agree with that.
Yadier Molina knew how to call a game. Next to, in my opinion, the greatest catcher that I've ever seen in Pudge, Yadier Molina. Now playing, I'm saying playing. Pudge, Yadier might be right there with Pudge. In calling a game, defensively, everything.
I would agree with that. You know, again, if you're talking about the history of baseball, you know, and that sounds like an episode of Goat Talk.
It does.
Greatest catchers of all time.
Starting next Monday, 7:00.
Right. That's right. And, you know, the fact that I look at it and I go, okay, if I'm looking at catchers, you know, you look at the stealing rates from when Yadi came in 2004, I believe it was.
Something like that.
And he had that run all the way up until he retired. It was only a couple of times during the entirety of his career. That last year he was here. Now, he was splitting a lot of time. He was splitting a lot of time with Ivan I keep wanting to say Ivan Rodriguez. The name will come to me. Their big prospect catcher that they had brought in, and they were splitting a lot of time. What's that?
Who, the Cardinals? Or are you
Yes,
talking
the
about
Cardinals.
Dude, I don't even know who that was.
Yeah, he's their minor league catcher.
Oh,
I'm just having a brain fart. Herrera, that's
Herrera.
right. Yes, Ivan Herrera. Because you
okay.
said Ivan Rodriguez, so that just
Right,
got
yeah.
me going down that pathway. But that's kind of where, I look at it and go, okay, he was splitting a lot of time his last season. So that's why they bumped up there in steals, is because they knew that Yachty wasn't going to be behind the plate to pick him off. He was that good. I mean, even up till his last couple of years, that's the way it was for him.
Well, and if you look at Jordan Walker, let's look at Jordan Walker for prime example. Remember when we drafted this kid, they talked about how much of a stud this kid was, right?
Right.
But he gets up into the majors, okay? He goes into somewhat of a slump, and what do? They ship him back down to the minors. And then they bring him back up. So he goes into another slump. They send him back down. How is that good for a player?
It's not. It destroys their confidence. It absolutely destroys their ability. And especially when they go from the minors, if they're, let's use an example. Okay. In Memphis, you're going to have a different program than you are in AA Springfield. Okay. If he's playing Palm Beach, or he's playing Grapefruit League, or he's playing wherever it is that he's playing, the reality is you're destroying these young men's confidence when they're constantly bouncing around from one level to another level with a different coach every single step of the way, telling them that whatever that is that they're doing is the wrong way of doing it. Look at Jordan Walker, for example. He is the prime example. He is the guy that we hung a hat on to sit there and go, this kid's gonna go far. This kid's gonna go somewhere, as the song goes. The kid's going to go far.
Well, I mean,
that was our hope.
Right.
He was our shining star. And
look at the
he
players.
gets to the big club, and he totally just is a babe in the woods, just falling all over the place.
Well,
can't hit the ball to save his life.
Right. As the second half of the season turned around, the kids started catching fire. I mean, let's go back and look at some of the people the Cardinals have given away in the last 5 years. Ozuna.
Well, he's got a history.
Oh, okay,
but I'll hear you. Go ahead, continue.
The kid's great. You cannot deny it. What's the other guy?
More.
What's the other guy?
Randy Arozarena.
Arozarena.
Adolis
Garcia.
Sandy Alcantara.
Yup.
They just let Tommy Edman go this year, who was a super utility player, could literally play any position on the field.
Right. Now, let's look at the fact of Bobby Witt Jr. across the 4-hour drive over there. Yep, Berkman. But at that time, Berkman was at the end of his career, though.
He really was at the back end, yeah.
Yeah.
Him coming from the Yankees when he had that 1 year with the Yankees, and he came over. He had a career resurgence with the Cardinals, was here for a couple of years, and then he should have called it after that, but didn't he go back to the Rangers, and he played like a year with the Rangers or something like that?
Yeah. But, I mean, let's look at a guy that's 4 hours west of St. Louis. Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah.
He came up. Royals didn't give up on the kid. The kid started off rough.
He did. He had a tough go.
Now look at him.
Yeah.
Look at him now.
He hit his stride.
Yeah, is he not doing very well in the postseason? I think I turned into the game last night and he was 0-8 in the playoffs. But again, the kid was a beast. It seems like Mozeliak gives up. And Arlington says here, I blame the coaches for Walker's success, right? Now, I will say this. I'll give the Cardinals some credit. Jack Flaherty, another great guy that they gave away. I'll give the Cardinals organization some credit. They didn't give up on Mason Wynn. Even when Wynn was struggling, they still stuck with them. Don't know why they didn't do it with Walker, but they did with Wynn.
Correct.
And Wynn looks like a promising player. Like Wynn's very first MLB debut, and the kid made some great plays there at shortstop.
That's right.
You know, and look, everybody knows I'm not an Ozzie Smith fan, but what are the Cardinals known
easy
for?
now. Easy now.
You know the reason why I'm not an Ozzie Smith fan.
I know why, but
what are the Cardinals known for? They're known for great shortstops.
they are. To an extent. Well, and here's the thing. They wouldn't be known for great shortstops if it was not for Ozzie Smith. Let's be real. Ozzie Smith held down that position for what, 15 years, 16 years?
Longer than that.
It was, well, solidly. Like, he was the guy.
When did
as
he
far
come over?
as
He
the
came over
entirety
in
of the league.
81? No, he came over in 79.
Yeah, no, it was in the early 80s. It was 80, 81, because that was when we had Gary Templeton.
It was 79 when Templeton was traded.
Was it 79? But
I'm
that
almost
that was after the infamous Mother's Day game where he flipped the bird at the fans, and Whitey Herzog ran up out of the dugout, grabbed a hold of him, and drug him down into the dugout and gave him a thorough tongue lashing. And then not far after that, not long after that, he was traded to the San Diego Padres, and which, in all honesty, Gary Templeton, solid shortstop for the remainder of his career. He was no hack joke. Ozzie came over in December of 81, Arlington says. See, that's what I thought. I knew it was right then because they won the World Series in, what was it, 82?
82.
So, yeah, 82 to 96 with Ozzie, Ron states.
Okay,
and he's
81,
right
81.
because 96, that was his last All-Star appearance, and he had that big farewell tour that he did. Yeah, Gary Templeton deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah.
But really what the Cardinals really truly are known for, is outfielders.
Yep.
Right? Catchers. Right? Pitchers. And third baseman. That's really the big three, because everybody always forgets, because, in short-term memory in the baseball world or in the sports world, we all kind of have that tendency to have a little bit of short-term memory loss when it comes to the organization and who they've had at certain particular positions. Remember Todd Zeile?
Great player.
Came up as a catcher.
Shares my birthday.
Shares your birthday. Came up as a catcher, converted to third base, and played a majority of the back end of his career with the New York Mets. And had a lot of success there. You look at somebody like, for example, over at third base, Ken Boyer. I mean, Ken Boyer for years was the guy at third base for the Cardinals. Perennial All-Star, World Series champ, just a beast at third base. But everybody always remembers Scott Rowland.
Yep.
Now everybody looks at it and says, well, Nolan Arenado, which, again, great players, no slouches. But we've had some amazing players at third base within this organization over the years that have played in that place. Now, we've only had a couple of really good second basemen over the years. Some of them have been a little bit touch and go, but we've had a lot of really good first basemen too. I mean, even if they were flash in the pans, even if they were just like for 1 year, like we just had them for one little bit, the one that always tickles me to death, I think was 93 or 94 when we had traded for Andres Galarraga. And we had gotten Andres Galarraga, and he played, half the season. I think he played like 60, 70 games.
You got to remember we had Will Clark, Will the Thrill.
And I mean, I was just a kid in a candy store with his sweet swing, and he came over, and I thought, oh man, he's going to get a career resurgence. He's going to stay here for 2 or 3 more years, and he just hung it up.
Well, I mean, let's not forget one of the greatest first basemen to play the game of baseball, Keith Hernandez. The batting. The mad batter, I called him the mad batter, because man, that guy could hit for average. He could hit. It didn't matter if you threw it in the strike zone or just out of the strike zone. He could hit it, and he could put it where he wanted to put it. He was that good. And then you remember the outfield during the 80s, and you look at Vince Coleman. You look at Van Slyke, Willie McGee.
You had Willie McGee. There was.
I forgot about
during the
that.
80s. Yeah, that was just during the 80s. Yeah, Greg
was the
Jeffries.
replacement for Galarraga.
Greg, I remember how mad I was when they let Greg Jeffries go. And he
Yeah.
went, what did he go to? The Phillies? I think he went to the Phillies or he went to the Mets. I can't remember
I think
which
it was
team
the
he
Phillies.
went. It was the Phillies or the Mets he went to that next year. And he had a lot of great years after that. Greg Jeffries, great utility player. The one I always remember was Minnie Mac. You remember Minnie Mac?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Harry Pendleton at third base.
Yeah, Gary Pendleton was at third base or Terry Pendleton. Yes, I'm sorry. Terry Pendleton at third base. The Atlanta Brave great that everybody associates him with the Atlanta Braves for his long-term tenured stay with the organization.
Yeah, but when I think of third base for the Braves, I think of Chipper.
I do. I think, well, shortstop, really. I mean,
Chipper was more third.
He was later on in his career.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at
But
this
I mean,
team.
you know, that's just the way that it is with the Cardinals organization. You look at their pitchers. The pitchers have always been either elite for a lot of years. I mean, there was that span in the 70s at the back end of Bob Gibson's career.
Right.
Where we had Bob Forsch was just coming up, and Bob Forsch couldn't throw hard. I mean, he threw like 80 poo. I mean,
Something
he couldn't.
Like that.
He couldn't. I mean, it was like throwing a bucket of water towards home plate. The guy was an amazing pitcher. He was a Greg Maddux type of pitcher where he could take that ball and he could put it wherever he wanted to because he had that pinpoint accuracy and control. And he got guys to chase cutting fastballs or sliders.
John Tudor.
Speed. John Tudor, the
Joaquin
amazing
Andujar.
pitcher. Joaquin Andujar. He was one tough Dominican. And, you know, we had a lot of really, really great pitchers over the years. And again, everybody remembers Chris Carpenter and Adam Wainwright in their heyday. And they forget about Matt Morris. They forget about Kyle Lose.
You forget about Darren Kyle.
They forget about Darryl Kyle because he passed away so young and unfortunate, you know, on the road. So
you move to today's team in this organization. And it seems like once Jocketty left, because if you really look at the team that Jocketty built in the minor league system.
Right.
Okay. Because before Jocketty came, well, he was, and you're going to read all this in Derek's article, so I'm not going to give a lot of it away.
Right.
But once Jocketty left, that is when the Cardinals organization started to go downhill because we were giving up on too many of the prospects that we had in this system. Yes. Was Mike Matheny successful? Yes, because Mike Matheny came in right at the end of La Russa's thing. You know what I mean? Like, look, we let Albert Pujols go in his prime. Let him go in his prime, because if you go back up and you look somewhere where Sabrina says they didn't want to pay their players, we could have paid Pujols the money, but they didn't do it.
Yep.
Pujols could have been the greatest Cardinal of all time. He could have held every single record for the Cardinals of all time.
And again, I think that a lot of his degradation as a player, his breakdown as a player, happened because he went to the Los Angeles Angels.
Oh, I
think
agree.
there's a lot of that there was a lot of disappointment. There was a lot of depression potentially that was involved in that. Obviously, we know that his marriage ended up on rocky terms, and he ended up filing for divorce from his wife as soon as basically he got back to St. Louis to return with the team. Again, not making any judgment on anything. I'm just saying that there's a lot to unpack there. And had he had stayed in St. Louis, had things worked out the way that we had hoped that they would have worked out, but they didn't, it just turned into what it turned into. And it's unfortunate because of that fact. But I look at the Cardinals today and I say 2007, from that time period on, we had Tony La Russa until the end of 2011. Mike
Mhm.
Matheny then took over as manager. He ran for a few years. He was let go. Mike Schilt came in and took over, was starting to turn the team around. Then all of a sudden, he's fired. He's let go. And
Mhm.
then insert Oliver Marmol.
Mhm.
So let's back it up. Let's go back to 2007. And we look at Tony La Russa. He's still there. He's still running the clubhouse. He's still doing things the way that Tony La Russa does things. John Mozeliak is still following the formula that was his predecessor.
Mhm.
He's still following that formula. Because it was a winning solution.
Mhm.
It had credibility. It had legs. Until it was getting to a point where La Russa was stepping away, and you could see that La Russa was starting to do that. And as soon as John Mozeliak inserted himself into a position of power and installed his guys, because we all know, we've all been there. Spurge,
Mhm.
you've been there when we've
Mhm.
worked at companies and the management structure changed. Then what
Mhm.
happened? Then the supervisors started getting fired, or the team leads started getting fired, or they were moved in different positions, or whatever the case was. And they brought in different people. Why? Because they wanted to have their people in those positions. That's what John Mozeliak did. He brought in all of these people that were his people, his yes guys that weren't going to tell him no, and that were going to march to the beat of his drum, and that were going to follow his war plan going forward. And they did. Now let's fast forward 3 managers later, a farm system that's utterly depleted,
Mhm.
a Major League Baseball club that has been completely nuclearized by the fan base, by everyone within earshot that'll listen to anything that goes on about this organization and what has happened. And you
Mhm.
have an inept ownership that refuses to answer questions about what is the plan. What is the plan? On 101 ESPN, they said it on the morning show. They came forward, had a press conference. Ron said it in a comment earlier that I just put up on the show.
Mhm.
No plan.
None.
Even Randy Carricker himself, Megamind himself, had stated they have on payroll, on retainer, they have a PR company that they could have hired to bring in to handle this whole mischief. They didn't. They didn't do it. Why did they not do it? Well, it's because either A, they're being cheap, B, they're that arrogant, or C, they're that stupid. So I don't know which of those 3 is the answer, but it's clear to me as the crooked nose on my face. I've had this thing broke a few times. Okay. So it's as crooked as all get out. All right. So it's as factual to me as that. These are the 3 things that's going on right now today within this organization. And until something fundamentally changes in some aspect, nothing is going to fully, truly change. You want to go and you want to take payroll away? Go right ahead. It's just going to make things worse. You got to get the structure of the system built back in. You want to go back to George Kissel? You know how long that's going to take you? Being in the fact that you are the most understaffed major league club in the minors of all major league clubs, when you don't even have a catching coach and you just fired your minor league hitting coach in Turner Ward?
Now let's look at this. Chris put up a thing here. He says the Tigers' entire franchise salary is only $19 million. Well, so I looked that up. It's actually $106 million is what their payroll is for the year. Derek, let's look at the teams that are in the playoffs. You have 2 of the teams that are in the World Series playoffs right now, in the Detroit Tigers and the Kansas City Royals. That payroll is under 120 million. No, Chris, I'm glad you brought it up because I want to show something. Their payroll, those 2 teams, their payrolls are under $120 million. What have they done? They built their farm system up. and brought these players up.
I want
Just
to
like the
point
Braves have
something out.
done.
I want to point something out.
Mhm,
If you look at Detroit, you look at Kansas City, right?
mhm.
Two low-income ball clubs that managed to build what you just said, build their farm system, build it from the base on up. And remember how bad Kansas City was here a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Remember how bad they were. Now they're deep in the playoffs. They're fighting against the Yankees. The Yankees annually have a payroll of over $200 million
It's
every
almost
year.
300.
What is the LA Dodgers payroll this year? What's the New York Mets payroll? What's the Philadelphia Phillies payroll? What's the San Diego Padres payroll? They're all close to 200 million or 200 million plus. Now, let me ask you this question. Spurge,
Yep.
what was the Cardinals payroll this year?
That's
By
where I'm
chance.
actually looking it up as we speak.
Oh, well, why don't you go ahead and just
Now,
entertain us with those numbers, shall we?
and number one is the Mets at 305.
Yep, they're getting
Right?
hit with the taxes, that's for sure.
The Cardinals come in at number 11 at 179.
That's right. $180 million this year in payroll. And let's be
Yankees,
clear. It's
who are fighting.
bad
Who are
payroll. It's
fighting.
bad.
Are you ready, Derek? Are fighting a team of a payroll of $115 million in the Royals to their $303 million payroll. Then you have the Phillies at number 4 with 243, Astros at 236, Rangers at 223, Blue Jays at 221, Braves at 217, Cubs at 213, and the Giants round out the top 10 at 211.
Where did you say the Padres ended up at?
Padres 161, number 14.
Number 14. 161. Well, they did trade Juan Soto to the Yankees.
They did trade Juan Soto to the Yankees.
What's the Yankees payroll from since they took on Juan Soto's contract?
It put it up to 3. It put it up over 303.
Put it up 303. And so that's and where's the Mets at?
Mets are number 1 at 305.
305. So the Yankees and the Mets, 303 and 305. That's $600 and nearly $10 million in the city of New York in baseball payroll. And they want to sit here and tell us now, okay, now as you go down that list, that nice little list that you've got on your little computer screen
here,
over
you want
there.
me to give here? I'll put it up for you.
Let's bring it up. Let's
this
go
is
ahead
from
and present
USA
it to the
Today.
fans. USA Today. So it's a verified major news source.
That is true.
And we're gonna bring that up.
Give it a minute. Here we go. Right there for you, sir.
All right. So let's go down this a little bit, shall we? Because obviously two New York teams there at number 1 and number 2.
Number 1, number 2.
A West Coast team in the Dodgers.
Right
there at 200 nearly 50 million. We'll just round up for the sake of argument. Phillies, another big major market East Coast team. The Astros and the Rangers, both out of Texas, at nearly 500 million between the two. I mean, that's no laughing matter. I mean, you literally have how many? Arlington, get into the comments there and tell us how far apart drive time wise is Houston from Arlington?
3 hours.
Dallas. It's 3 hours.
3
right?
hours.
About 3.5 if depending on traffic.
Yep.
You go down through there and you look at some of these teams, and the ones that really surprised me the most, keep going. Keep scrolling on down. Okay, right there to the bottom. Okay.
Well, hold on. We went too fast.
You're bouncing around all over the place, dude. You're going to give somebody a seizure or something. Okay. So you go down through here and you look at all of these, and you look at the very, very bottom. We all know why the Athletics are there. We all know why the Pirates are there.
Yep.
The Guardians right here. The Orioles right here. Marlins were bad. The Rays weren't good, or weren't great, I should say.
Look,
the Tigers, there they are, 103.
You have 4 teams. The Royals, Tigers, Orioles and the Guardians. Aren't the Guardians in?
The Guardians were in. Let me look at
Yeah.
they're still in. Their series tied 1-1.
But you have 4 teams that are in the playoffs with 2 of them having payrolls under 100 million. Why is that, Derek? They've built up their farm systems.
That's right.
Something the Cardinals have not done in years.
Now let's scroll up just a tickle. Just go up just a little bit to see that midsection of the
Right
the thing.
here.
Okay. Giants at number 10. San Francisco Giants. They are going to take over that market now that Oakland is gone.
Correct.
They are going to invest heavily in that market. I see their payroll increasing to somewhere around the 250, 275 range to really
agree.
take a stranglehold in that market. I don't see the Giants waiting much longer now that Buster Posey is now taking over the president of baseball operations. Or is it their GM? I can't remember which.
All I know is Buster Posey is Arlington's favorite, is Arlington's all-time favorite catcher.
Well, I'll just have to take your word for it.
It's Arlington's all-time favorite catcher.
So, you're looking at these numbers and then you go, okay, well, then why didn't the Cardinals have somewhat of success? I said, well, they were above 500. Well, that's true. They were above 500. But here's what I would even go as far as saying about the Cardinals and their, particular record per se, is that we have become in this market so accustomed to success, and not just success to a certain extent, but the fact of going deep into the playoffs every single year. We lost the NFL in St. Louis, and it wasn't for lack of support. We only stopped supporting it when we knew that they were on their way out the door. The same thing happened with the now Arizona Cardinals, formerly the St. Louis Big Red. The same deal happened. You want to put a crap product out in front of us and tell us to like it? Sorry, we're just not that kind of fan base. We're not just going to go just for the sake of going. We're not going to support a bad product, even though the Rams did for a lot of years and the fans did for a lot of years. You got to remember that stretch from 2007, 2008, all the way until 2010 was the worst stretch in football history, in the history of the NFL. It was the worst losing record in the history of the NFL. And so when I tell people that are outside of the St. Louis market and they want to look at the baseball Cardinals and they want to say, oh, well, you guys should be ashamed of yourself. You're not supporting your club. Hey, listen, we've supported this club for, really, I mean, let's be frank, since the strike in 94. And because of the home run race with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, irregardless of juicing, irregardless of corked bats, irregardless of any of that stuff, we came back in droves. Then the Cardinals started to get pretty darn good, and then they started to win. We had the Albert Pujols years, Yadier Molina, insert here, Chris Carpenter, Adam Wainwright, Jim Edmonds, Scott Rowland. The list goes on and on and on. It's like in Kansas City, or as they say every single time they make a touchdown out there with the Chiefs, touchdown Kansas City. And so the City Chiefs, even though have had tons and tons of support throughout the years, I do remember the lean years in the 80s. I do remember Todd Blackledge. Okay. I remember those years, but I also remember the Nigerian Nightmare, Okoye. I also remember Derek Thomas. I also remember Neil Smith. I also remember Joe Montana. Let's forget about Elvis Grbac. That was.
But here's the question you have to ask yourself, Derek. If you take Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Wilson Contreras off this team, can you really think of another big name Cardinal?
To the novice fan, no,
Exactly.
you won't.
Exactly.
You won't.
But if you
now,
look at
now
this
to
team,
the deep involved fans within this market, they'll name every single player at every single position, every single guy in the rotation, every single guy in the bullpen,
right.
even who's coming up through the minors, because they're that dedicated to the product.
But
They know
let's look at
exactly
this.
what it is that they're looking
The
for.
3 biggest surprises from the Cardinals. I'll even go number 4 because we let one guy go away and then we brought him back after he did so good in playing for Japan in Lars Newbar. You remember when we let him go and then we brought him back?
Yep.
Because we thought he was a bum, because they thought he was a bum, and then he tore it up in the World Series, the baseball classic,
and made a name for himself.
And
now,
they brought him back.
They didn't officially let him go. They let him go play.
Wow.
But really, let's be real about it. What it really came down to was that they were on the fence about letting him go. I remember the trade talk.
That's what I'm saying.
Remember all of that going on at that time frame that they were shopping him. And I remember the ridiculousness that was everybody, Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani was never going to come to the Cardinals.
No.
Let's be real.
No.
He's staying wherever the money is, wherever the light is the brightest and it shines the brightest.
Well, and he's also staying the closest he can to Japan.
Yeah.
And that's the West Coast.
It's the West Coast. It makes all the sense in the world.
The 2 players that impressed me more than anything for this Cardinal organization, Burleson and Donovan.
Burleson and Donovan. I would agree with that. That's a really good point Gene makes right there.
Yeah.
I can't disagree with any of that, what he said right there.
I can't, because who would you have much rather had? Harrison Bader or Lars Newbar?
Well, here's my thing. You could have all the great defenders you want. You could have great bats. You could score on an average of 4 to 5 runs a game. That's all good, well said and done. But let's be real. If you can't pitch, right? There's this wonderful thing right here called a baseball. For those uninitiated, this wonderful thing right here, you could make it do some pretty spectacular things when you want to. The reality is you got to know how to do it. Now, I know how to throw it. My arm's not as good as it used to be. The shoulders, it's getting old. I'm over 40 now. It's getting tough to throw the ball
Gene,
like that.
Hold on, Gene put up the win. No, I knew Mason Wynn was going to be good when he was down in the minors. You could see that. Wynn really didn't surprise me.
No.
Wynn wasn't a surprise because I knew he was going to be good.
Well, but here's the thing.
But if you didn't really watch the minor league system for the Cardinals, you wouldn't known about Wynn.
But here's the deal.
As a novice fan, then yes, he would be a surprise.
What everybody said about Walker, what everybody said about Herrera, what everybody had said about Liberatore, what everybody had said about, now it's looking like it's McGreevy, like it's going to be the ace guy that's going to end up coming up out of there. Yeah. Even though Liberatore was the guy that everybody said he's going to be the next big pitcher that's going to do it.
And then they relegate him to reliever.
But this right here is where it's at. If you don't have pitching, if you don't have a solid bullpen, it doesn't matter. Because if you can't pitch this.
Well, one, if you don't have a starting rotation either. That's another big problem right there. I mean, do you remember when we got what we get, Sonny Gray? How many games did he play for us? How many?
Don't know off the top of my head.
Here, I'll pull it up right now.
Pull it up. Let's have a look at it.
Go.
Let's see how many games
Sonny Gray, I'm looking right at it.
Because he did have, one stint or 2 stints on the disabled list?
He was 13-9.
What was his ERA?
3.84.
What was his whip?
It doesn't give me his whip, but it gives me 203 strikeouts. First pitcher to have, 200 strikeouts in a while, right? I can't remember the last time a Cardinal had 200 strikeouts.
Well, let me pull that advanced statistic up. His whip was 1.088. That's walks, hits, innings pitched.
Right.
So for every innings pitched that he had, and I'll explain it to those who are not initiated to whip, That's your walks and your hits per innings pitched. So he had 1.08, so nearly 1.1 walks and or hits per innings pitched.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you got to equal that out to is the ZRA at 3.84. So he was averaging nearly 4 runs a game on average throughout his entire 2024 campaign. He had a WAR of 1.8 and a 13.9 win-loss record. I think that win-loss record is very skewed because if you go back and you probably look at it game by game, you will find that he lost games by a run or two.
Mm-hmm.
That he just,
Well, here,
didn't,
like Gene
get,
says
he just
right
didn't
here.
get any support.
Quality pitching. Once again, wrong buttons. They thought fixing pitching with Lance Lynn, Michaelis, Matz, yes, Dollar General shopping, paying for mediocre instead of overpaying for talent. You're right. Bryce Harper should have been a St. Louis Cardinal.
Well, and you look at his FIP for Sonny Gray, and FIP for those again, it's a low number. It's 3.12. Most pitchers are going to average at 4. Average pitchers are going to be above 4 to 5, close to, if they're not on the good side of things. But he had a pretty low FIP. He had 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. So for every 9 innings he pitched, he had just about 1 home run and 7.7 hits per 9 on average. That's not amazing, but that's not bad. You also got to remember he's more of a strikeout pitcher. He's not a ground ball pitcher. He's not, he's trying to get guys to strike out. And he only pitched 166 innings this year. I can't seem to recall what his stint was on the injured reserve, but he was on it there for a little while. What amazes me is the entirety of his career for Sonny Gray from 2013 all the way to 2023 before he had gotten with the Cardinals. His best year for strikeout to walk ratio, his best year was 3.33. That was 2023 when he was with the Minnesota Twins. This year, he had 5.21.
Mike brings up a good point. Is the league's 12th highest salary cap really worth 4 games over 500? Talk about underperforming.
Yeah. It's been a gross underperformance, to say the least. I can't state personally that the Cardinals seem to be in that we know how many wins we have to have in this division in order to be in the playoffs, and that's all we're shooting for. And Gene makes a good point to point it out. 83 wins is a quote unquote a winning season according to DeWitt. That's true. He feels that way. The truth is that we all know if you really want to win the division, or let's just say you really want to get in the playoffs, you better be about 10 to 12 games over 500.
Especially in the National League.
If you really want to get in.
So here, let's break it down, right? So the Phillies 95-67, the Braves 89-73, Mets 89-73, okay? The Nationals 71-91, the Marlins 62-100, the Brewers 93-69, Cardinals 83-79, Cubs 83-79, Reds 77-85, Pirates 77-86. Now, here's where it really gets you. Are you ready, Derek? That West Coast in the National League. Dodgers 98-64, Padres 83-69, Diamondbacks 89-73, Giants 82-80, Rockies 61-101. Now you're talking to make it to the playoffs in the National League, you better have at least 90 wins. Close to 90 wins. Or you're not making the playoffs. And for Cardinal fans who are the most obnoxious baseball fans in the world next to Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, I mean, Cardinals fans, we're the Philadelphia Eagle fans in the way of our diehardness for the Cardinals. I would say the Yankees are like the Cowboys, right?
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, what fans are more annoying than Yankee fans?
That's a good point, but I don't know. I mean, Philadelphia fans are pretty annoying.
I'd put them as the St. Louis Giants fans, or as the New York Giants fans.
I would agree with that assessment. The thing is, with a lot of with baseball fans, generally speaking, a lot of the issues I've seen typically revolve around the ones that are the most arrogant, are the ones that are like the big market teams, and they want to run their mouth a lot.
But
And
St.
that
Louis is a
usually ends up
big
being
market team
problematic.
when it comes to baseball. Whether we want to say it or not, St. Louis, when it comes to baseball, St. Louis is a big market team.
It is for baseball. We've got to cut this hour short. We got to go into our segment break, but we're going to come back hour 2 because this is going to be a special
Gene's
edition
got a
of the
point right
Derek
there.
King Sports
Look,
Show.
I was just joining you for a half an hour. And
No,
then,
you're coming in for another hour because
no, I am
we're
not.
going to be
I got to
talking.
get up early. I
No,
got to
you
get up
don't.
early.
We're going to be talking NFL football when we come back. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
We're coming right back. And again,
This is the Fuel Sports Network.
this is what we do here. So come back hour 2.
Behold the king,
We're talking NFL football.
the king of kings.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
I'm dropping the hammer.
No, you're not.
And that's the bottom line.
And we are back.
No,
Hour
we're not.
2.
We're just trying to stream ended over there. You see it?
Oh, did it?
On one of them, it did. I don't know where.
Oh, well, that's on the front layer.
Oh, we'll have to refix that.
Yeah, we'll fix that, but we're still in hour 2. We're still
We
going,
are.
man.
Oh yeah, it says we're live,
still-
aren't we?
Oh, what are we drinking here? Is this the strawberries and cream?
We don't get we don't get paid by them. I shouldn't be drinking that. It should
No,
be in a
you shouldn't
cup.
be drinking that. We don't get paid by them, but you know, sipping on the strawberries and cream. I get it.
Strawberry, Dr. Pepper, strawberry and cream, baby. We're getting
No.
NFL talk.
Yeah, NFL talk. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on over there in New York.
Which New York?
Jets.
Which
With the
one?
Jets. There's nothing really to talk about with the Giants. The Giants are the Giants. I do want to talk a little bit about the Washington Commanders and their surprising resurgence to the NFL hierarchy
Nope.
that is winners, so to
I
speak.
am not surprised because I had said that kid, Jalen Daniels, was the best pick for quarterback in the most ready quarterback pick for the NFL
Well,
out of all of them. He was
I
the
would
most
agree.
ready.
And again, what was the story I had heard just over the weekend that Jalen Daniels was being eyed by one of the other teams that's in desperate need of a decent quarterback, and I just cannot remember the life of me who it was, and it was making the rounds on social media that that was the case. But again, the biggest one that was surprised me was Robert Saleh being escorted out of the Jets facility by security after he was fired. Didn't have a chance to clean out his desk, didn't have a chance to talk to the other players, anything. He's just gone.
Listen, we sitting at dinner, right?
At the lovely, succulent Chinese meal.
The Chinese buffet is so good.
Yeah.
The
A succulent
Chinese
meal.
buffet is so good.
Those who know what I'm talking about will get the joke.
The Chinese
What's the
buffet-
charge? What's the charge?
The Chinese buffet is so good. I love
Eating
that.
a meal, a succulent Chinese meal.
Love that place. But anyways,
I can't repeat the rest of it, but you get the idea.
How is it that you have a quarterback say in a press conference, it's not a personal thing, I just didn't like the guy personally. It's not personal. I just didn't like the guy personally and couldn't play for him.
That's not the way I would have phrased it. I would have said something different. I would have said something along the line of, it's not personal, it's just business, and I couldn't play for someone whom I didn't agree with their play calling, with the way that they run things, with the way that they do things. I couldn't imagine that. So therefore I'm good. I'm done. I'm out.
I'm good. But this shows you the arrogance. I used to love Aaron Rodgers, right?
Right.
Loved him. But I am starting to really, really dislike this man every time he opens his gray beard mouth.
He's become quite vilified.
Very much so. I don't know if it's too many hits to the head that this guy has taken over his years, but why would you say that to your coach? You're talking about a quarterback, a 40-year-old quarterback who is a team in desperate needing of rebuilding in New York, influencing this team and influencing upper management to make changes. How is that possible?
Because of who he is in his contract.
I guess.
And you also got to look at it and you got to say to yourself, okay, if that's really the case, then how is it that this guy can have this much power, this much control over executive decisions within the organization of who they have as a coach? Last time I checked, the coach was the end all be all, right?
Well, it used to be. It used to be in on a team.
Then why isn't it this situation? Why isn't it in this particular case? Why are we talking about Robert Saleh being let go, walked out by security in New York in the Jets facility? I mean, don't get me wrong. They're not doing great. They haven't done great last couple of years. I get it. I'm not saying it's the wrong call. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying in this particular instance, I'm thinking we're looking at this all wrong.
Are we?
Because we're talking about Aaron Rodgers being the influential thing that caused him to lose his job. I don't necessarily subscribe to that thought process. I just don't. And the reason that I don't is because Robert Saleh has done a terrible job in New York as their head coach.
I agree.
He's run that organization into the ground. The Jets need a fundamental culture change from the top to the bottom. We talked about the Cardinals and in Major League Baseball and other teams that are in the playoffs last hour. We talked about that. We talked about the fundamental decision-making that gets made within these organizations from the top down. Why is it that certain teams get it and they figure it out, and then other teams can't seem to get out of their own way? Why is that? The Jets have done this for how many years, Spurge?
Well, so it's funny that you say that. So I'm on ESPN.com right now.
Okay. Okay.
It's just over the last 3 head coaches. They had Bruce Corslet, 26 and 38. Todd Bowles, 24 and 40. And Robert Salas, 20 and 36. Now, Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, had came out and said, hey, after Aaron Rodgers made his remarks saying, hey, this was my decision and my decision alone. That's what Woody Johnson said. That's what Woody Johnson said, according to ESPN and all of that stuff, right?
So is that Woody Johnson trying to protect his position as GM at that
I think he is. And Adam Schefter is breaking the news as he is driving his car. So way to go, Schefter, on ESPN and Michael Smith.
Oh, way to go, Schefter. Way to take one for the team.
Way to take it for the team, buddy. Do your job while you're working.
Yeah, that's right.
But listen.
I'm listening.
Look, I understand why they fired him. But again, I go back to the Aaron Rodgers thing. Woody Johnson should have came out. Woody Johnson is defending Aaron Rodgers, saying, no. The decision was mine and mine alone. Okay, listen, it could have been because you are the owner and you are the president. But right here, you dumped a lot of money into this guy, and AR has got Woody in his pocket. Because for some reason he has the influence to do it. Now, does Aaron Rodgers deserve that influence in football? Maybe, because there are certain players that deserve that. Just like with Tom Brady, when he basically said to Todd Bowles when he was the coach, hey, I'm calling my own plays on the field. I don't care what you guys draft up for me. I'm calling my own plays. Peyton Manning, the same way. Told Dungy. Then when he went to Denver, hey, I'm calling my own plays. I don't care what you call into me. I'm doing my own thing out here on this field. Patrick Mahomes is now starting to get that relationship with Andy Reid and all of that stuff. There are certain players who get that kind of respect. But my opinion with Aaron Rodgers, you've only won 1 Super Bowl. Okay? Sure, you just threw for 60,000 yards. But what have you done lately?
Yeah, 50,000 of those yards came, or 55,000 or so came from while you were with the Packers. So let's be real about this and who
59,000 of them did.
There you go, 59,000, because I forgot he had the Achilles injury last year, which has, stunted him and held him back. But let's be real. Aaron Rodgers just finished him off, if that was the case.
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't really that he had that much pull, that much say, but, it's just, we're going to have to wait and see how that whole thing pans out. If they manage to right the ship, turn things around over there in New York, get the right people in there, it's not going to be while Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback, because this is probably his last year. And maybe he comes back another year. Maybe he pulls a Tom Brady and plays till he's 45. I don't know.
He could.
But the other one that I wanted to talk about was my Cardinals beating the San Francisco 49ers. Boy, howdy, wouldn't you know who won the pony? Kyler Murray, 19 for 30, 195, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. James Conner, he did decent. He had 19 carries, 86 yards, but so did Jordan Mason for the San Francisco 49ers. But Brock Purdy, you want to talk about somebody who fell out of the boat and didn't have a life jacket. 2 interceptions on the day. You cannot turn the ball over to another pro football team. You just can't do it. And so now you let a team who shouldn't beat you, and the Arizona Cardinals beat you. I love the Cardinals, and I root for them all the time. They're my team. But they should not have beat the San Francisco 49ers.
I mean, listen, let's look at it this way, okay? The San Francisco 49ers are a lot of injuries. A lot of injuries, right? You look at the guys that are out for them. You got McCaffrey, who is basically the heart and soul of that team, right?
Right.
Debo is banged up. Okay.
And
What's
has
his name?
Ayuk even been playing up to standard?
Ayuk is not playing up to standard. You know what I mean? So the only thing you have is George Kittle.
Right.
So we've seen what happens with the 49ers are like the Chiefs. Without all of those other weapons, Brock Purdy's not going to do that good. He's definitely not a Patrick Mahomes where he can extend plays. Is Brock Purdy a good quarterback? Yes, he has proved it. He has proved it. Yeah, and Amanda brought up a good point too. Kittle was hurt week 1 and week 2. I mean, you're missing the second greatest tight end in the game. Now you got Nick Bosa who's banged up. This is a team who is really, really banged up for the way that for what they should be.
Now, the question that I have pertaining to that is that, when back in the 70s and the 80s, even in the 90s, guys didn't have these off-season workout programs of like these guys are doing now. And these guys are coming in and they're coming in ripped and jacked, and they've been doing all sorts of these workout programs all throughout the year, staying in shape, staying ready, doing drills. Does that have a common denominator? Is that a common denominator? I should rephrase and use my grammar. Is that a common denominator to a lot of these injuries that we're starting to see, being now that there's, rules basically put in place due to the contracts that were written with the players unions, that they don't have a lot of hard contact during mini camps anymore? Well, and that there's no real training, but these guys have been training all year. And Chris Mason says in OTAs, but these players have been training all year in these off-season workout programs, and they've been going to the Himalayas and seeking out, shaman wise men on the mountaintop and, doing all sorts of wild things that they've been doing to stay in shape. The question I have pertaining to that is, how much abuse are they putting their body through?
Oh,
by the time they get to the season, they're already beat up because they've been pushing themselves so hard to be in such great shape, as to where when we were younger, this is going a little bit back, but when we were younger throughout the 80s, even the late 70s and early 80s, guys were smoking cigarettes on the sidelines.
Yeah.
In the clubhouse, in the locker room, not a clubhouse of the same baseball, but they were smoking cigarettes. They were drinking beer. They were eating hot dogs.
I mean, look, if you look at this, okay, you look at these players that are now, they're so much more. I mean, like right here, you're talking off-season contracts, not allowed to ride motorcycles, skateboards, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. These guys are so much more built, and they're just so much better athletes, right? Yeah. Their body is being put through so much physical strain that without all, I mean, you're talking these preseason games are 3 weeks now? Yeah. And they're not getting a lot of contact. They're not getting hardly any contact even in the beginning of the season.
They're not doing it in minicamp.
No.
They're not getting full pad practices. No. They're not learning how to do any of this stuff. Well, I shouldn't say learn. The vets know how to do it.
Right. They
don't need to be told how to do it. That's not the point. Again, I'm just thinking out for the safety and the well-being of the players and going, why are we seeing so many injuries? Is it more to do with the fact that these guys in the past, they would get hurt and they wouldn't say anything because they didn't want to lose their spot?
I guess they would just play through the pain.
But then you got to look at it also too as well and go, is that a lot of the reasons why we have CTE so badly and so prominently nowadays?
I mean, it could be.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of things to take into account.
Prime example, David Carr is going to miss the next 3 weeks. What a butt muscle.
Yep.
What a pulled butt muscle.
Yep.
What does that tell you?
Not David Carr, Derek Carr.
Derek Carr. But a
David
butt
Carr,
muscle.
David Carr, the Texans, great.
Right, a butt muscle. He ain't going to be able to play because of a butt muscle, man.
Right. Well, did you see that and it's not just those injuries too. You start to see like a calf strain, or
Yeah.
you see like something like a hand contusion or something along those lines. But I grew up in the 80s watching guys play with casts on their arms. Do we need to go back and talk about Larry Wilson, the St. Louis football Cardinal great, who played with 2 broken hands and caught an interception with 2 casted broken hands?
Let's look at the prime example, okay? How many injuries have been season-ending injuries up until this point? You got Rashid Rice, who is out for the season,
Right.
right? That's just one that I can name off of the top of my head. Who else? There's somebody else. That's another big name. I can't even think about it. I can't even remember it. I'm going to Google it right now as we speak.
Go ahead.
But you look at all of these.
But I'll follow up with that to say you're starting to see more and more of these minor injuries that have cropped up because these guys are getting guaranteed contracts. Why go out and risk your body? And especially if you're on a team that's not going to compete. If you're on a team where you're going to lose, then why go out and compete? Because here's the thing. They're still going to get a guaranteed contract with the next guy, or they're going to get traded, what have you. It's all going to change. It's all going to pivot because they've all got guaranteed money and guaranteed contracts. Back then, guys didn't have that. They were playing for their livelihood every single snap, every single year. They had to prove that they still belonged in the league, because if they didn't, then they were gone and they didn't come back. Let's not forget the greatest Sharp of the Sharp family, Sterling, who was the greatest football player in that family. Shannon Sharp's great and all that stuff, but Sterling Sharp was so much better.
Oh.
And when he had that neck injury, he could have come back a couple of years later, but the NFL wouldn't let him.
Here, Shaq Thompson for the Carolina Panthers, their linebacker.
Yeah.
Out, injury reserve, right?
Yep.
Look, Chris put some up. For the Bears, let's see. Nobody of a big name for the Bears.
Yeah, Chris, just pointing out something. I believe he did break his neck, and they were doing a run play I don't remember if it was in Green Bay. It was a relatively cold day. I think it was in Green Bay at Lambeau. And he had, I guess, got his head put down. Something happened, and he just barely dinged the top of his head, and that's all it took. So, yeah.
DeMarcus Lawrence for the Cowboys.
Oh.
Brandon Cooks for the Cowboys.
I forgot about Brandon Cooks. Yeah,
two of your biggest players there for that team.
Mm-hmm.
You go through and you look at these lists of these guys who are these big time players and are out. Houston, Texas last year with Tank Dell, their star receiver.
Right.
Out at the end of the year, injury reserve, right? Here, Anthony Richardson, another concussion. He's questionable. Might not. Tokutai, what's his name? The Miami Dolphins.
Tagovailoa?
Yeah. So, you look at this. Here, like I said, Rashid Rice, Hollywood Brown for the Chiefs out.
Yeah, he's been out for a minute.
Now, what that does is you brought up a good point.
Mm-hmm.
It opens up some stuff for some of these young quarterbacks that are in this league. And the one that might be the best quarterback in this league right now, right?
Right.
Is Jayden Daniels.
Jayden Daniels, and that's where we were getting ready to lead into, is the Washington Commanders and where they're at right now over there in Washington, D.C., even though they're still a horrid, wretched name of a team that I cannot stand. They just put a hurting on Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns.
Did they
Deshaun
ever?
Watson is so bad. I mean, the guy is just proving he doesn't want to play anymore. The guy's just proving, or at least he doesn't want to play in Cleveland anymore. Again, he's hurting himself by not playing well. If he wants out of Cleveland, that's not the way to go about it. It's not like Jaden Daniels blew the doors off in passing. He was 14 for 25, 238, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Again, you can't give the ball away, guys. You can't do that. But Jaden Daniels did lead the team in rushing with 11 carries for 82 yards. That's a little over 8 yards a carry, or right at 8 yards a carry. That's pretty good.
That's very good. Now, if you had to go by rookie of the year after the first 5 games, okay, you got J.J. McCarthy. Chris is asking in Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy is out for the year.
Yeah,
remember that's who they pinned everything on. And remember, the guys the Jets got rid of, Sam Darnold.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm even hating to say this because Daddy Ed and Amanda are loving it. Sam freaking Darnold is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. What does it show you? It shows you get a quarterback who's got pieces around him. They can be a good quarterback. Yes, you're right, Chris. Sam Darnold looks like an all-pro. Looks like an all-pro. But if you had to pick right now, Derek, in the rookie of the year of what we have right now, who are you going with?
Right now, as it sits, because of the record, Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. You have to.
I mean, I'd like to see Caleb Williams kind of.
No.
You know?
Caleb Williams.
I'd like to see him get going, but, I'm just saying, I'd like to see him get going.
Let's see. You're the only major injury for the Minnesota Vikings is J.J. McCarthy. That's it. Mike.
One thing I wanted to point out was this right here. We were talking about it earlier, and we were talking about it in just the types of players right here. The great Lynn Dawson taking a drag on the looks like to be a Camel non-filter.
That's right, baby.
That's what it looks like, Camel non-filter. This is not in any way stretch of the imagination an advertisement or anything for cigarettes or cigarette smoking. It is bad for you. Don't do it. But this is stuff that commonly happened in that era.
Right, yeah. Now, if you look, Derek, in the NFL right now, okay? If you look.
I'm looking.
The NFL, okay? What team besides the Commanders, who lead the NFC East, by the way, at 4-1, with a rookie quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
How often does that happen? Not very often.
Not very. Typically, they're in middle of the pack, bottom of the barrel.
If there's a team right now that is surprising you,
out of the entirety of the league, or
the entirety of the league right now,
I would say the team that surprises me the most, because I really thought that they would be really bad, that they weren't good. They weren't going to be good at all.
We're not talking about the Commanders. We're taking the Commanders out.
Taking them off. I thought the Vikings. I thought the Vikings were just going to stink it up after McCarthy getting hurt, and being the fact that Sam Darnold was their backup option. I just really went, Vikings, man, you guys are goners. It's done. There are a lot of these teams I suspected the Giants to be bad. I'm really surprised the Eagles are as bad as they are. They've just shown that they're terrible. I'm really showing, a little bit of optimism with the Bears. But again, the Lions are looking really, really good. You've also got over in the AFC side of things, Texans are looking great. The Colts, if they stick with old Joey Flacco and they ride that hot arm of his and they stay in contention, I just really think that if they protect him and they do the right things, I think that the Colts could turn it around.
Amanda goes, Derek, You know what? Me too. The
Yeah.
shocking thing is, are you ready for this, Derek?
Hit me with it.
Who do you think has the best scoring differential in the NFL?
Ooh, the best scoring differential.
Don't look. Don't look.
Well, okay,
It's
so
gonna shock you.
guessing it's going to be a team probably with a 500 record or a losing record.
Okay. Has the best scoring differential in points between them.
In points.
Points
And it's
for,
going to
points against.
and it's going to surprise me.
Yes, it is. It is not the Bears, because this.
No, it's
shocks
not the
me.
Bears. I can tell you it's not the Bears. I
But
would
at this one conference, every single team in this conference is above 500. It has the entire conference has the best scoring differential. All of them are in the plus in this.
So that
one
has
conference.
to be the NFC. Is that the NFC North?
You are absolutely correct.
That's the NFC North.
Uh-huh.
And the best point differential is not going to be, surprisingly, is not the Vikings. I know that. I'm going to say the Packers.
It is Minnesota Vikings.
Oh.
139 points
It is
for.
It is the Minnesota Vikings.
78 against, with a differential of plus 63.
Huh. What is their turnover ratio?
Oh,
Plus,
I'm
minus.
just looking at the standings. I'm just looking at the standings.
Well, I would like to know what their turnover ratio is.
They
for that
literally
particular team.
have. They literally have the best point differential in the league. You ready for this?
Okay.
The closest team to them is. You're going to be shocked. Are you ready?
Is it AFC or NFC?
Wow. It is an NFC team, and it has a losing record but leads their division.
Oh gosh. And again, I'm not going to look. I'm not going to tab over and look. Leading their division, and it's an NFC team, but they have a losing record.
Yeah, which I don't know why it's like. Oh, it's because of how I have it. Yes. They're not leading their division.
They're not.
But they have the second best point differential.
And they're in the NFC.
They're in the NFC.
Is it in the NFC West?
No, it is not.
Okay, so then it's got to be probably either in the South or the East.
Hello, Wyatt. Chris has picked one of the teams, but I am not saying which one yet.
Okay.
I'm giving you a hint. It's one of those two teams.
Well, I'm going to say Tampa Bay.
You're wrong. It was the Saints at 44. They are 140 points for and 96 points against. And they are the next team with the best scoring differential in the NFL.
They're the next team with the best scoring differential in the NFL or in the NFC?
In the NFL.
Wow. So two NFC teams
Yes.
back to back that have the best scoring differentials in the NFL, and it's two NFC teams. Wow,
and then the next one is Buffalo. Buffalo with 36.
Yeah,
And
Buffalo's
Kansas
been
City-
putting up some points. I'm really surprised that, they've really kind of turned it around over there.
No, I like. And then our team that we were just talking about, the Commanders, with the great rookie of the year as of right now, Jaden Daniels, they have 40 points, 155 points for them with 115 against them.
Now, I got to ask you the question. You've played quite a bit of fantasy football yourself, haven't you? Okay.
Yes.
You playing fantasy football this year?
I am, and I'm doing shitey.
I have decided to take a semi-retirement this year.
Okay.
Our good friend Gene Bonds has tried desperately to get me back into the saddle with a lot of the comings and the goings. I'm always great at picking winning players that win on teams, but I have an abysmal time in fantasy football these last several years because the players that I pick always end up doing really well, but they end up getting hurt. Or something ends up happening. Their team gets, out of contention. So they're not pushing as hard as they used to. They're kind of like, hey, I'm just saving it for next season. You remember how Isaac Bruce with the St. Louis Rams, he had the mysterious hammy whammy there for years, in 97, 98 with Tony Banks. And we had, Steve Bono there for a hot minute, Steve Walsh. And I could go down the litany list of quarterbacks that we, threw out there along with Chris Miller during that 95 to 1998, end of 98 season in St. Louis that was so abysmally bad until we, just call it what it is, an absolute miracle with Kurt Warner falling into our lap. Even though Trent Green was nothing to sneeze at. Trent Green was a hell of a quarterback, and he was a really good player for a lot of years. He played a lot of really great years with the Chiefs. He had a couple of years with the Dolphins. He came back to the Rams towards the end of his career, but he had a lot of concussions and, towards the end of his career. He never had any more knee problems as far as I know after that 1999 injury in the preseason where Rodney Harrison came out from the blind side and hit him in his lower extremities and his leg. That lets, and everybody talks about Rodney Harrison, how great Rodney Harrison was and all this other stuff. Rodney Harrison, as far as I'm concerned, was a headhunter. He was the type of player that would go at you no matter what. He would hit you high. He'd hit you low. He didn't care if he hurt you. He was just trying. He was trying to hurt you, but he was trying to hit you, not injure you. Let's be clear. And the fact is that he went in and hit Trent Green low like he did. As mad as I was then, I'm just telling you, it made me so furious, but then we wouldn't have had what we had in 1999. Right. And through that time period up until Warner was let go and he went to the Giants and then ended up with the Arizona Cardinals, turning that organization around.
Now, you were asking about Minnesota's defensive differential, correct?
Right.
Okay, so I pulled that up. This is courtesy of ESPN.com. They are ranked 5th total differential at a +4. 11 interceptions, 2 fumbles for a total of 13 takeaways. For giveaways, they are at 4 interceptions, 5 fumbles for a total of 9. They are ranked 5th in differential. The teams above them, the Bills, Packers, Bears, and Chargers are the teams that are above them. Now, are you ready for this one?
Hit me with it.
We're talking about Jaden Daniels, correct?
Right.
The Commanders are tied for 4th in offensive passing yards at 392 with the Packers. This is total yards per game. It is the Ravens at number 1, 49ers number 2. So Baltimore is at 447. 49ers are at 407. And the Lions, who have built a great team up there in Detroit with the trade for Jared Goff, who has finally worked for them.
Well, and Dan Campbell's just turned that organization around.
Dan Campbell has brought in a great winning culture, program, philosophy, everything. They're at 397 in total yards per game, and then the Packers and Commanders at 392.
Now, yards say a lot, but touchdowns say more.
Okay. So then, not going to talk about because they don't have them in the top 5, but in rushing. Are you ready for this one?
Ground control.
The number 1 team is, we already know who that, Baltimore.
King Henry.
Lamar Jackson.
Yep. You've got lightning and thunder. You've got a double threat.
Scrambling quarterback since Michael Vick, because he overtook all Michael Vick's records over the day.
Right.
Number 2 is the Washington Commanders at 178. That one kid, that one player, Derek, has changed this entire franchise around. You talk about franchise quarterbacks. You talk about franchise players, right?
Right.
Do we see Jaden Daniels at this moment, the franchise player and the face of the Washington Commanders?
To be honest with you, at this point, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, right?
I mean, you have to.
What this
I
kid
mean,
has done?
Now, what are you going to do to give him the necessary weapons and the necessary protection he's going to need for the next several years while he's on his rookie contract?
Right?
You've got control of him for the next, 4 years? Okay.
Yeah.
Now is your window. Your window is now, not later. Now, we do have to take a real quick short break. We're going to be right back. We're going to still continue to talk about NFL. We're going to go over some other teams. We're going to go over the next series of things that are going to end up happening in the next week of the NFL season coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. So we've been covering the Washington Commanders, their rise like the phoenix from the ashes to the upper echelon of the NFC East.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously still have the Cowboys. They're nipping at their heels.
Mm-hmm.
The Philadelphia Eagles do not look like the Philadelphia Eagles of a year or two ago.
They do not.
They look like they're in serious trouble. They
Mhm.
still have to get things figured out. They have not done that yet.
Mhm.
They could still do it.
Mhm.
So that division, the Giants are just bad. That division is between those two teams, as far as I'm concerned. Now, you could, if the Eagles get it figured out, you could have a 3-team race. You could have yourself an arms race there. But
I don't know. Listen, the way that I'm watching the Cowboys play, if I'm looking at it right now,
Mhm.
that's the Commanders' division to lose
if they allow it,
if they allow it. And that's if Daniel stays healthy. Because
correct.
if you go back to week 5, right?
Right.
Okay, which was last week, and the Cowboys played the Steelers. Steelers are not a very good team. They're okay. They have Justin Fields as their quarterback. Okay? But let's look at it. 20-17, they beat the Steelers by. Okay? So we'll go to week 4. Let's go to week 4. Of course, this thing wants that.
And while you're doing that, and you're going back to week 4, you go back to that Cowboys-Steelers game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields still had a decent game, 15, 27, 131, and 2 touchdowns. Didn't turn the ball over. Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions. And now I sit there and I argue the case of you can't turn the ball over, right?
Yeah.
They turned the ball over twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers could not capitalize on the 2 turnovers.
Who do the
They
Steelers
allowed
have?
the Cowboys.
They don't have anybody.
They allowed the Cowboys to score 14 points in the fourth quarter, 1 unanswered.
Mm-hmm. So
They allowed them. They had them down
Mm-hmm.
in the fourth quarter. They had them essentially beat,
Mm-hmm.
and they allowed them to come back and score 14 points in the fourth quarter. That's absolutely unexcusable.
Garbage.
You can't
look.
allow that to happen. The Steelers are, and I've said it from the beginning, they are that sneaky team that's
Yep.
gonna, they're still 3-2. They're
Mhm.
that sneaky team that's gonna win some games, and they
Mhm.
could be at the end of the year fall backwards into a bed of roses in the NFL playoffs.
Especially in that division, because
Right.
with the way that the Browns are playing and the Bengals are playing, they could definitely get a playoff
Right.
spot. So you go back to
Right.
week 4 with the Cowboys. They played the Giants 20-15. Barely win again, right?
Right.
So then you go to week 3. Let's see where they at. They lost to
Yep.
Baltimore 28-25.
Right.
Okay. You go to week 2. And then let's see. Where are they at? Week 2. They get blown out in home by the Saints, 44-19.
Yeah, I remember that game.
And then you go to week 1. And they beat Cleveland 33-17. They have not had a decisive victory since week 1.
And when you mean decisive, I mean the Browns is pretty decisive since
That's
week
what I
1.
said.
Yeah, since week
Week
1,
one, that's
they're
it.
pretty decisive. But yeah, since then, you go to week 2, they lose. They get drubbed by the Saints in week 2.
Yeah.
Then you go to week 3, just going back over what you already said. Lost in a squeaker to the Ravens, 28-25. Then you go to week 4, the win just barely over the horrid Giants, 20-15.
Mm-hmm.
That should have been a 50-15 game. That should have
Easily, hands down.
routed them. Just ran
Routed 'em.
circles around them. They didn't do it. And then
No.
ending up here in week 5 with the outcome of a 3-point win coming from behind in the fourth quarter to beat what most people would determine a mediocre Steelers team with Justin Fields as quarterback. Now, the real test is going to be against the Lions next week, as Chris was saying, Mr. Mason was saying in the comment section earlier. They're going to have a lot of Lions coming back off the IR.
Oh, and listen.
And he's calling a shot. Are you ready? Here we go. 52-7.
And listen, the way that the Lions are playing, they're playing they're playing good football. Jared Goff isn't really
They're
turning
playing
the ball over.
solid football. They're playing
solid football.
good, solid, fundamental football.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making mistakes. They're getting the ball. They're controlling the clock. They have a decent ground game. They do their check downs. They do their passes. They go through their reads. They do everything by the book. They don't try to take risks. They don't try to do dumb stuff.
They have one of the best young quarterbacks or one of the best young receivers in the game with Ahmad St. Brown. In my opinion, Ahmad St. Brown is a top 5 receiver in this league.
I might even put him higher.
You'd put him higher?
I'd probably put him at number 3.
Ooh, who would you put him over?
So Tyreek Hill is either 1 or 2 because of just his pure speed. You get the ball in his hands.
I'm talking about young receivers in the game.
Oh, young receivers in the game.
In my opinion, there's 2 above Brown.
All right. Okay.
Actually, I'll give it 3 above Brown.
Okay.
Nico Collins.
Nico. Okay.
Jamar Chase. And Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson, I'll give you that one. Chase.
No, Chase is good. Chase is good,
but I would put Amon-Ra St. Brown over the top.
Oh, you'd put him over Chase.
I put him over Chase.
Okay.
I just think that I think his ceiling is a lot higher than what Chase's is.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. And you got to remember, Brown, he's played 4 games, and he's starting to get that double teaming against him.
That's true.
On that team, because which is amazing, because what really other players besides Jameis Williams or Williams do the Lions have as a receiver besides Brown? I mean, right now Brown is ranked 37th in the league in receiving, but it's because he's getting double teamed a lot.
Right, it's because he's getting double teamed, and that's really the problem with some of these players, some of these star players that they have. You know, you got to look at them and you got to go, man. You guys have got to turn this thing around. You guys have got to pick up some slack. You know, I mean, you got a decent running back in David Montgomery, but he's a little bit long in the tooth, right? You just got to ask yourself, you know, if you're the Lions, right? And you're only getting, and like this is going back to the game against the Rams in week 2. Amon-Ra St. Brown only had 3 receptions for 13. I don't know what his targets were.
That's what I'm saying, because he's being double teamed.
And here's the thing. Sam Laporta, who's their tight end, he's their check down guy.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So outside of Jameson Williams, who's a good option at wide receiver.
Do you really need the wide receiver because they have a really good 1-2 punch with running back with the Gibbs, the kid Gibbs they got?
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah.
Because they're both ranked in the top 20 for rushing yards.
They are. And my thing is I think that it's because David Montgomery, who's got the years, he's got the experience, he's been in the league forever, it seems like now at this point. I mean, he's been in the league since, it seems like forever, but since 2019. For a running back, that's an eternity.
That is an eternity.
And for Chicago, he had 2 seasons. He had 1 season over 1,000 yards.
Well, and he took a beating in Chicago.
He did. He got beat up badly. And his first year in Detroit in 2023, he played for 14 games. He had 219 rushes, and he ran for 1,015 yards. He had 13 touchdowns, which was the highest by far, almost doubled up on his highest total, which was 8 in 2020. You know, the guy is a solid running back. You can give him the rock, and he's going to give you about 4 yards average on a carry.
Now, if you go as the best running back duo in the league,
I would say if you're talking about pure running back, they're up there. If you're just saying running back,
they're the best.
But over in Miami, right? Even though Miami's not doing good right now.
Well, no, there's only one best running combo in the NFL right now.
And that's Baltimore.
And Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, that's Baltimore. Right.
That's Baltimore. They have the best running combination. But if you're talking just running backs by themselves, then yeah, because I look at the list and there's only one team that I see 2 running backs on that are on the same team. And that's the Lions with Gibbs and Montgomery. So they might be the best 2 running back combo in the league today. You know what I mean? That are in the top.
Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, I really think those are the 2 best running back combinations because I've seen what they can do if they have a blocking line.
I don't even see them on the list for top running backs.
That's what I've seen from their stuff. If they can have a line in front of them that blocks for them, then I would see that. But they don't have that. They don't have that. But if you're talking about this year alone, Raheem's injured.
Raheem's injured.
I didn't know that.
Now look, here you go. You ready? So I'm looking at this list, okay? And it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, Derek, there is only one team on here because ESPN has it broken down to the top 50 rushers in the NFL today, right?
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, It looks like there is only one team on here that has 3 players in the top 50 for rushing. I'm double checking before
you say it.
Would you care to take a guess? Because I'm looking and I think I might be right. Yes, I think I might be. Okay, I am fairly confident I have it. But would you like to take a guess?
I'm just going to take a stab in the dark here. AFC or NFC?
NFC.
NFC. Okay. Well, we were just talking about Detroit.
It is not
But
Detroit.
It's not Detroit. You said 3?
3 players on the list in the top 50 for best rushers in the game right now. It's going to shock you.
In the NFC.
Yep. And out here, they're not on the West Coast.
Well, no, they're on the East Coast.
Yes, they are.
And I would say the Philadelphia Eagles.
You are wrong.
Okay.
Right conference, but wrong team.
Really?
Yes,
It can't be the Commanders.
it is.
Oh,
Austin Eckler.
BS. No way.
I swear I'm looking at this. It's Austin Eckler at number 48 with 150 yards rushing.
Oh, I forgot. Didn't Eckler go to the Bears in a trade, or
No, he went here. Okay.
who was it? Who was it that went from the San Diego? Well, there I did it again.
It was Eckler went from Allen, Keelan Allen.
Allen went to the Bears.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
yeah.
so then we go from number 48 all the way up to number 16 with Jaden Daniels at 300 yards rushing, and then Brian Robinson Jr. with 325. And I scrolled up and down this list because I'm like, there's got to be another Raven on the list, right? And there's not. Okay, I'm like, okay, there's got to be another Texan on the list. There's not. There's just Cam Akers and Joe Mixon. Like, I was thinking, okay, maybe CJ Stroud. I'm looking. I'm like, no CJ Stroud. Okay. So I'm like, all right, let me keep looking. And I'm like, oh my God, again. Who's the head coach in Washington now?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Because whoever it is, he is changing the culture in the nation's capital.
Dan Quinn. I should have guessed that one.
Wow.
Dan Quinn.
And Dan Quinn got ran right out of Atlanta.
Yeah, he did.
Well, we're already at 2 hours, Derek.
Are we already at 2 hours?
Yeah, all right. Let's hurry up and do the picks then. You want to do the picks?
Let's do the picks for next week. Let's get that down.
Let's get to it. So Thursday night, Tampa and Atlanta. I'm going Tampa.
I'm on Tampa as well.
Okay. New York, Minnesota. The Jets versus the Vikings.
Jets versus the Vikings. I'm going to take the Vikings all the way.
I
Skull.
am too. Carolina at Chicago. Bears.
Bears. The Bears. The
Baltimore.
Bears.
At Cincinnati. Listen, until you stop Lamar and Derrick Henry, I'm going Baltimore.
I'm going to say that Cincinnati bounces back.
Oh, okay.
That's
Miami.
my upset pick of the week.
Oh, wait. I'm an idiot. I'm at week 5. What a moron.
Are you at week 5?
Yes. Week 6. San Francisco versus the Seahawks.
Oh, my. So let's back that up. So you were running in on week 5. Let's go. Okay, week 6.
Thursday night, 49ers versus the Seahawks. I'm going
49ers, Seahawks. I'm going 49ers. I think they bounce back. I think their ego's bruised. I think they bounce back.
All right, Jacksonville in London against the Bears. I'm going Bears.
I'm going Jacksonville.
Okay. Niners in Green Bay, or Cardinals in Green Bay. I'm going Green Bay.
I'm going to go Cardinals. I got to go with my team.
All right. Indy and Tennessee. I'm going against ancient old Joe.
Nope. I'm pulling for Joe smoking Joe Flacco.
That's what I'm going for, Joe. Houston versus New England. I'm going Houston.
I'm going to go Houston as well on that one.
All right. You got Tampa against butthurt Derek Carr. I'm going Tampa.
I'm going to go Tampa on that one too as well.
Cleveland versus Philly. Ooh, I'm going Philly.
Yeah, Philly. Got to go Philly.
Oh. The Commanders versus Baltimore.
Commanders versus Baltimore. That's going to be a tough one.
You know what?
I say it's going to be Baltimore.
I'm going Commanders.
Okay.
You got Chargers versus the Broncos. Bo Nix playing great up there in the Mile High. I'm going Denver.
I think they're playing loose. I think I go Denver as well.
All right. We got the Steelers versus the Raiders.
I'm going to go over the Steelers over the Raiders.
See, I'm going to go with Gardner Minshew with that hair. Well, we already know who Chris is going for, the Detroit or Dallas. I'm going Detroit.
I'm going to go Detroit as well.
Atlanta, Carolina. Atlanta.
I'm going to go Atlanta as well.
Cincy versus New York. I'm going Cincy.
I'm going to go Cincy as well.
And then Buffalo against the Jets. Buffalo.
I think that the Jets bounce back.
Okay.
I'm going to do an upset pick. I think the Jets bounce back against the Bills this week.
Lock of the week. Let's do a lock. My lock. You know what? I'm going to do it, Derek. I'm locking it. I'm locking with the Commanders.
You're locking with the Commanders.
Yep.
I'm going to lock with the Colts over the Titans.
All right, there you go. I'm sorry for invading the Derek King show. It's been fun.
But that's what we're here doing. This is all new. This is what we're going to do from here on out. And I appreciate everyone who's tuned in tonight. Thank you so much to the Spurge himself for gracing us with his effervescent presence. As always, we will be back at Tuesday at 7 p.m. next week. And we're going to do this all over again, but we're going to be back down to an hour that time. And we're going to have a lot of fun. And again, thank you so much. Make sure that you like, you share, you subscribe, because again, everybody, we can't do
And
this
that's the bottom line.
without you.
Here, have a quarter, make a phone call.
All of the victims of the hurricane that's
Yes.
hitting Florida. Much
Yes.
love, thoughts,
Everybody,
prayers.
hunker down there. Be safe. Do the right things. Do the safe things. Protect your families down there in Florida and out there on the eastern seaboard too as well. But we're going to be back next week. Thank you guys. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you send it all around. We appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. Love you guys. See you next week.